Hello. I'm going to do another post-mortem on my tournament performance. Very similar to probably the last video I did, I think, was the PUPL video. I did pretty well in PUPL. I want to do that for SCL as well. I like going over my stuff. I think it might be interesting for people. So this is just going to be a review of 7 weeks of SCL games. I was not in for two, and just going over my thoughts on the metagame and the games and stuff like that. Should be pretty self-explanatory. Probably not amazing content for you unless you're specifically looking for like a breakdown of the PU metagame and how it's transformed. So, just a heads up there. Week one versus Fish. Now, I like part of the reason I get to do this is because, spoilers, I lose this game, but I have a better record than Fish ending the regular season. I actually ended regular season with the third best record, so my opinion matters more. Get wrecked, nerd. Um, I'm not going to be going over individual poke pastes and stuff, but for this game in particular, I want to review what I was prepping for Fish because I think it's more interesting than what I brought. What I brought ended up being an attempt at a balance using choice band Palmot, something I thought was pretty interesting at the time. Remember, this is pre-shifts meta. There's still a lot of Galarian Slowbro. Belly Bolt was on a decline. I thought it'd be very interesting to bring choice band Palmot, which seemed like it could basically kill the whole tier if you get your predictions right. Like if you look at this team, obviously the problem with choice band Palmot often doesn't have a safe move to click, but between close combat, double shock, and ice punch, it has the ability to just annihilate everything here. I also thought Weezing was pretty cute. This was when Venusaur was still kind of new, and I felt like it was very annoying. I thought Weezing would be pretty interesting in showing the team up, especially because I wanted to use Rotom and Palmot, and those are both kind of not amazing into Venusaur. The problem is it just kind of comes out as a generic balance with a strong breaker. And Fish also has kind of a generic balance with a strong breaker, but a much less passive one. This was definitely, I think, not a team I really should have been using. And the team that I had prepped and was planning to use up until like the day of this game was, I think, a lot more interesting. And it actually used stuff that's no longer legal. I just realized my whole team is legal. Um, it was around Swords Dance Sneasel with spike support, trying to take advantage of removal being kind of wacky, trying to take advantage of Decidueye, hopefully being like the best remover for spikes. A lot of these mons can mess with Decidueye, Psychic Noise it to stop it from healing, knock it off. Only really Bronzong is defensive Decidueye bait, even with Lash Out on the Scarf Wet Bolt to function as speed control and kind of like try to pick that off. And I just didn't feel like this team was really functioning well enough defensively. If you look at this team, it's pretty bad into Decidueye, considering Gligar has no recovery and Sneasel's too frail to really want to hit, like actually switch into it. It can revenge it, but switching in is tough. It's strong in a lot of ways. It could take advantage of some structures, and this would have been great in a Fish's team because Fish has a Specs Tornadus. Tornadus, not a big thing at the time. This was like the start of Tornadus rising, and obviously at this point, Tornadus is like an A minus, A rank mon, like really huge, really common. And Fish was starting it about 9 weeks ago now. This was like its first big game, and I had a counter. I had like the only counter to something nobody was prepping for, and I didn't bring it. And unfortunately, a lot of this game is just me losing in the builder, and we can skip through it really quickly. It's so uninteresting. I'm just gonna go through like very quickly because there's just not a lot going on. Fish does indeed have like the defensive defog Decidueye, something I did expect, and unfortunately, Weezing lives every Bleak Wind unless it's choice specs. I was like, I don't know what Torrens is gonna be. I'm gonna pain split. That seems safe. Because obviously I don't want to harden the Copperaja. My Copperaja's Assault Vest knockoff would have been perfectly reasonable to expect. Nobody's really using like a Specs Torn type deal. I only die to Specs Bleakwind here. And at this point, I already can tell the matchup is so down. I'm so far behind. There's so little I can do that my choice here is to go Caparaja, intentionally reveal and lure the Gastron with my Terragrass Terrablast, something that removes ground types for Banded Palmot, and give up my Grass Resist, and just pray I can dodge one of the moves from the Torn. I really think this was my best win con. I still stand by that play. Looking at how bad this matchup is, how bad this game is going to be, like, I think I absolutely have to go for it. I don't think there's a choice. And then, I try to do some doubling around. I go Palmot. I hope he will not stay and let me kill him, but he totally stays in and lets me kill him. Yeah, he probably would have won even if I had just Ice Punch Code him anyway. Like, it's not a huge deal. I even missed the roll on Scarf Explosion. That's like, if I remember correctly, that was like slightly in my favor, I want to say. 50, like one of those 56.3% rolls. But I don't get it. And it never mattered because, like, he never misses a bleak wind either, but I do think I had to go for that. And I think the interesting thing here is just that I'm seeing a lot of this in PU World Cup too. These like passive-ish balances. People are trying not to just use the same mind gaming, the same Frostmoth stuff. And I think a lot of it is coming out too weak and do nothing, where you can't really break the stall that's everywhere, but you're also not really good into other more offensive balances. And like I still have this game in my head 9 weeks later, pushing me away from this type of team, from this type of stuff. I'm really trying to not use it. I've been really trying to build stuff that is more interesting and different. Like the most balancy balance I've been using recently has two toxic mons and some protect as a way to like mess with and stall out stuff. And then also some like specific anti-offense techs. And just trying to be weird for offense to break down. And I think PU is in such a broken state right now that this type of balance is even worse than it was. PU's really broken. Every style is inherently flawed. It's just like it's become a much worse meta since post shift. These first three games I've got here pre shift, I miss this meta a lot. And I do think people should look back at their teams and go, what is this team really doing? What is it setting out? What is it trying to accomplish? My team here was trying to accomplish lure Gastrodon and then break stuff with Palmot, but it's also kind of missing a convincing sweeper, a convincing win con. And I think even if I hadn't run into an exceptionally bad matchup, which is absolutely what I did with Specs Torn, I think I'm just not proud of this team in hindsight. And I think I do a lot better. I use the same team the next 2 weeks, which we'll get to why. This is probably my favorite thing I've built, maybe all generation. I love this team. It's pretty awesome. It doesn't have that kind of convincing sweeper, but has multiple things that can function as cleaners. And I think it has a very clear goal and idea. It's got two defensive pivots, Milotic and Decidueye, both defensive with U-turn and flip turn. It's got this like weird check everything mon in Hisui and Quillfish, which wasn't getting a lot of use until like around this week, not just from me. Someone else was also using it. And then it's got this breaking core here. More pivot, speed control, messes with all the stuff people are using. And then Specs Duraludon Guts Heracross as like the most in your face forcible breakers you can possibly imagine. And I am kind of a believer in if there's enough breaking power, you don't need the most convincing sweeper. I think just like Kilowattrel, which obviously like isn't even gonna outspeed a lot of Scarfers, can lose to priority. I think it like does its job here. And Terra Water Terra Blast, very strong set at the time, pre-shift. Well, obviously we lost Kilowattrel post-shifts, but Rotom Heat, something I'm often weak to, very much on the rise. Just hitting Gligar and all these things without needing to rely on Hurricane. Very obnoxious set. I really like it, and I like how this team comes together. I don't think there's a lot of convincing weaknesses. I think everything can be played around. And I also really like Mind Gaming's team. This is obviously pre-shifts. It's got the Duraludon, the Gligar, the Wet Bull, but I think a lot of this is what's going to become the Mind Gaming balance that is just all over PU World Cup right now. That same Frostmoth balance with some kind of other physically defensive pivot. Now it's more Belly Bowl, and then the same types of Pokemon. stacked on. I think this is like a really nice precursor, and he definitely picked up on Frostmoth. Pre-shifts, I don't know about. I'm not sure if I necessarily agree, but he brought it back post shifts, and it really did the work. Like, it really worked out. Matchup wise, I definitely like what I have going on. I like being able to hit specs moves with Duraludon here. I like being able to hit guts moves with Heracross here. And if I can just keep my offense up and keep momentum and work with my pivots, I think it's good. And none of like that will ever really matter. The first couple games are not very interesting for me to share. It's a lot more about like meta thoughts and stuff going back over this because unfortunately what happens is I get very lucky early on and it kind of just destroys this game. Um, we're both going to lead Duraludon and both just chicken out, unfortunately. I forgot about that. That's very funny. I did not expect Stun Spore at all. I had no idea what to expect from Frostmoth, but as people weren't using it, my thought was it does seem like it might be defensive, like not quiver here, but I am thinking maybe Rest Talk, maybe Giga Drain, maybe Defog. I'm not expecting Stun Spore at all. And had he paralyzed Duraludon, he would have been in a much better position to pivot around my moves. But I dodged one Stun Spore. I dodged two Stun Spores. Did I only dodged three? I thought I dodged four this game. I dodged three Stun Spores, which just sucks for him to not get a Frostmourne. Oh, that's right. I'm not Specs Duraludon. This is Offensive Rocks. Basically, same deal. Offensive Rocks Duraludon was a crazy breaker. It did not need Specs. In fact, that's even better into this team because I can mix it up between Draco and Flash Cannon. And I Draco there thinking he might pivot out, assuming I'm choiced, and go Tauros and try to save the Frostmoth for a sack. Um, no, I'm Rocks Duraludon. But same thing applies. Double non-choice breakers is also really nice, I think, not relying on the lock-in moves and stuff, having dealt with that with Palmot a lot. Um, and this is also why I like this matchup here. Spadef Milotic really helps against Specs Duraludon, which has very few things that can convincingly stop it. I'm going to pivot in Duraludon, Kilowattrel. I know Duraludon's going to come out, but like I can keep chipping it with Volt Switch. Not being U-turn when they're mostly U-turn is something that helps me a lot, like force a little damage on them early. And I can play this very safe, very passive, keep roosting. I'm going to go back to Kilo because I can still live a dual wing beat, and I don't need my Kilo super healthy. Like, this is all just fine. Oh, I roost. I thought I was going for Hurricane. Either way, um, chip the Gligar. Don't need to worry about getting toxic or knocked. I don't need to stay perfectly healthy, and I even hit two. Like, everything is just going my way. Um, I do switch out thinking he's Scarf, but that is Specs Meloetta going for the Psyshock, which was a good play. I do recover predicting him to double on my Quillfish. Oh, there's my cat. Like, I didn't think he'd double Psyshock when I still have a Dark type. Probably should have recovered on that Draco, but again, I'm very safe early on, and I even dodged this Draco, which would have chipped my hair across quite. Like, obviously, I can live that. He's at -2, but that would have been a significant amount of chip that just lets me play so safe into him. In fact, if I double Trailblaze there because of the dodge, I probably just immediately swept. But he's Scarf Toro, so I'm going to switch out. Zen is also pretty fun, trying to catch the Venusaurs. I really like Mine's team, and it's a shame like that early stuff with the stun spores and then the Draco dodge. Like this is basically unwinnable for him. There's just so little he can do. I do try to get him to focus blast me, but he just goes in for Shadow Ball anyways. Well, that was dumb. I didn't need to. But Heracross can live a Shadow Ball, so I just get a free Trailblaze here. And at this point, again, like not over, but what are you gonna do? I'm gonna keep picking up a kill. Every time you get a kill, I get a kill again. And I started so far ahead because of all those dodges and stuff. So I'm gonna turn it on to hyper fast and skip through the rest. Sack Milotic. Then I decide to go Duraludon. He's Terra fighting close combat, not something you also saw a lot of back then, but I live that. I've got Quillfish to Terra Dark to Terra Ghost just to make it even easier on Meloetta. Like this is over. But very fun teams. Stuff that even though it's pre-shifts, I'm still thinking a lot about. I'm thinking a lot about more of these early games and like we'll get to these later games. I'm thinking a lot less about my later weeks, unfortunately. And then we get to week three, Michael. The only time he can play is 6 a.m. Wednesday. I don't prep a new team. I don't have time. I just run it back with this, and I don't think I was playing that well. I throw this one. That's the honest truth. I do, and this is less about teams in this case. I'm reusing the same thing. I think I throw this one because I start great. I've got my Terrawater Terrablast when Rotom is clearly a massive threat to the team. Uh, Annoying Hurricane because I would have liked to see if he's AV immediately, but I get to find that out, so it's not a problem. Um, like that's the start I wanted. Rotom's a huge threat. I get to immediately blast it. Kilowattrel, great pivot into his team. I do get Zoroark a bit there. I thought he would be. I did not think that was Zoroark, and he goes in for knockoff. I was really expecting a sucker punch when I went back to Quillfish. I do get knocked early, not super fun, but this is what Quillfish does. It just like it keeps stuff at bay long enough for me to do whatever I want, you know. And in this case, whatever I want is to just chip the AV Slowbro to keep pivoting around. Gets the Rotoman on the Volt. Unfortunately, that was a good play. Um, I'm going to send in the Decidueye. I think I called Decidueye defensive. It is pivot U-turn, but it's not defensive. It's sword stance U-turn. But I don't know. I didn't remember all this stuff perfectly. I didn't go back to review it because that for me is not like the point of going back and reviewing these games. But I'm picking up more spikes. I'm chipping the Slowbro. I'm keeping all this stuff at bay. Like this is slowly but surely working out. I can afford to use Milotic here as well, and a burn would be excellent. Just more consistent chip. Getting poisoned is also like fine. He's got three or at least two physical things that I would love to have that Marvel scale against. But also being Spadef, I see the Decidueye. I'm like, this is probably defensive. I can live a Leaf Storm, and I don't want to give him time to defog, so I am just going to flip turn out because now I still have the sack. And now something has to get knocked off by Heracross, which Michael really can't afford to switch anything else in. So this is all so far okay. Like I'm using a good team. I'm playing it solidly, but we're gonna see where it all goes wrong. So I get the Kilowattrel back in. I try to Volt. I can kill Gligar here. Or not kill, but I can like significantly chip the Gligar, which is really what I want because Heracross is almost ready to just sweep this team, and I don't get the chip. I Volt Switch because I think he's going to switch Slowbro. I don't think he's going to let me Terra Blast his Gligar. And like, if he goes slow, bro, I get to Terra Blast, I get to Volt Switch, I get all the chip I wanted, two spikes, and I have a clear switch in Quillfish, or even Duraludon. I could actually probably go Duraludon. Like, I did all the analysis back then. There's just no reason to go in for this prediction. Absolutely none. But what happens is I don't get to cash out my damage. He gets to get Tauros back in, and I'm slowly like just losing a bit of momentum. I'm going to toss Quillfish, not go to Decidueye because I can't absolutely get to a KO'd, and he goes in for the wave crash. Just I should have been able to get more damage here. Slowbro comes in, and I Draco and Flash Cannon would have been very safe because I Draco'd, I'm just not strong enough. I also miss here. This miss probably cost me the game, not getting that damage on Gligar, and I shouldn't have needed to hit. um, Between Terra Blasting the Gligar and Flash Cannoning the Slowbro so that I could then Draco and guarantee a kill. I shouldn't have needed to hit in the first place. That's my fault. But missing the Draco, that Gligar's health is going to come into play. I go Kilo thinking Earthquake because I need to keep my Duraludon healthy. In this case, he actually U-turns. Um, gonna sack Kilo so I know what I go into because at this point I can maybe still win with these three guys. Just maybe. But he does go hard Zoroark on the Decidueye, which is not what I wanted. I really wanted him to try to sack something first, and unfortunately, Decidueye's gone. At this point, I have just lost because Heracross can almost do it with Trailblazing if I had enough damage on Gligar. But I don't, which means even with two Trailblazes, he is totally free to sack Slowbro. Um, He probably was also sucker on Zorwork, so even the damage on Gluggar wouldn't have mattered. Like the thing is, Heracross should not have needed to set up in that situation. If I'd just been able to cash out my damage and do some real breaking, I would have been fine. I would have been just fine, but I wasn't able to get all the damage I needed early on. And this game to me is less about like the meta and those larger thoughts I'm having earlier. I just remember this game as like, yeah, I threw. I should have been able to win this, and I threw. And that's just kind of how it is. So unfortunate. I think Michael's team was fine. I think he played fine. Like I don't really think he made any major missteps. I just think I probably should have won with a better team. Um, yeah, I'm not happy about this one. And between being 1-2 in my first 3 weeks and the fact that Kushalos was 0-3 and cost $27,500 in the auction, my team decided to toss him into PU instead. And I'm not going to go over his games. I want to just look at mine. And ultimately, he wasn't using stuff that I was trying to prep and help him with prep, but he was kind of using his own stuff and own like takes on stuff. And I think his takes were like not bad, very interesting. I like what he added to the meta, but the games more came down to him throwing than like any of the team stuff. So I want to go back to where I was at because after 2 weeks, he goes 0-2. He moves into, I think, OU instead. And I'm placed back in to fight Hope, who had said after week one that I'm going to have the worst record. I was definitely like motivated to beat him, even though at this point it seemed kind of clear like we had chances, but Foxes were probably not making playoffs. I wasn't expecting a ton out of my record. Like if I lost the rest of my weeks, I wasn't gonna be too surprised. But I try to prep in like a bit more of a jank offense, which is also a trend that has really taken off, but not in the direction that I made it all. We are seeing right now more webs, we are seeing more terrain, we are seeing more like weird sub DD Kingdra stuff. And my version of jank offense is kind of just like some strong breakers and double eject pack and Mesprit pivot and just like a very pivot heavy. Hopefully, one of these things does a good job at breaking your team. I like this team. I do. It's definitely got flaws. Flaws that I am absolutely okay with. I accepted that. I was like, I think I'm going to match up well into Hoenn, and then I've used this team a couple more times because I've stopped building after it. Like I needed a break and I needed a team, and maybe some people from maybe like some other people have also brought it to PU World Cup because the paste has been floating around. But I think this is definitely a good into Hoenn type thing. Um, Still works, absolutely works, but doesn't want to run into certain things as much like Tornadus. Um, but there is, I think, a merit to this kind of offense, especially now looking back. Like there's so much stall. I think this kind of works against stall. I think Mesprit's just kind of good in general, like a really solid rocks pivot. I like the thing. Um, the basic concept of the team is that Hariyama is close combat eject pack, Tatsugiri is Draco eject pack. I've got Band Arcanine, I've got Specs Meloetta, I've got Mesprit as a stealth rock U-turn pivot, and for the cleaner, Sword Stance Trailblaze Hazel because just kind of end up working out. Like I need something with speed so that it wouldn't just break, but it could also like check things like be faster than Tornadus and whatever. Um, Still slower than Salazzle, definitely a problem for this team too, but it just kind of works out. And Hoen's got um a more or less generic balance. It's got Articuno, and I feel like nowadays it might have like a Frostmoth and something else over the Decidueye. Like that's what would make this team look like all the other teams, but it's definitely in line with the type of stuff we start seeing over the next several weeks with the mind balance and the fish balance and my take on that and all that kind of stuff. Like I think it's fine. But I definitely am going to be the one in the driver's seat trying to make things happen. I need to be the one to win offensively because I have very little longevity and he's a lot of longevity. And I think this game is just, again, not as interesting as the meta stuff. In large part because I really screw up Kushalos like 10 minutes before the game. Tells me to put T Wave on Mesprit. And I do that not realizing I can't pivot on Bombardier anymore, which sucks. This team really wants Mesper to pivot on Bombardier. And I have to sack something, and I decide my least useful thing here is probably Tatsu, given that he's got the Articuno there. But yeah, this that sucks as an opener. Like I do get the KO back, but giving up that offensive momentum so early is just not ideal in any way, shape, or form. I'm gonna have to let Melo take the chip. I can't really just let him like U-turn on me for free. I don't know. It's not ideal. Now Mesprit goes away. Mesprit is mostly there. Like I want to force Tauros into fire move. That's a lot of what keeping Mesprit around helped with. Um, that's gonna let me go back into Hariyama, bluff thick fat, but I also do live because he's Scarf. Free knockoff time for me. Definitely a misplay here. The bullet punch is so obvious. It is painfully obvious. And what's he gonna do? Freeze dry me? Like I don't care. This is a turn where you go for close combat and you try to call out Hoenn switching. And as soon as like the animation starts, I'm like, God damn it, that was so stupid of me. But I bullet punch. Let's not take any damage, and he goes right to belly. Now there is an advantage here. I am guts. If he paralyzes me, I'm gonna be very happy because I want to be able to break the belly bolt. So I am going full on contact move, hoping I get paralyzed. Unfortunately, I don't twice. The one time you want to, because I need the belly bolt low so that Sneasel and Arcanine can win. I don't get it. He is low, but I don't get the type of chip I'm really looking for. So Meloetta comes out. I'm assuming it's Specs because that is Scarf Red Bull, and I'm going to lock into Raging Fury because I don't want to be stuck in Flare Blitz. I know he's going to Terra Water. At this point, my plan is to force that out, go back to Meloetta, hopefully clean up with Sneasel in the end. Because I only need one Trailblaze to be faster than his team, but he's at 100% health, which is not cool. Plus, he's a free sack of Articuno, and there's nothing I can do about that. Um, so Red Bull comes in. I'm gonna go Arcanine because if he close combats and kills me, Sneasel gets a setup. So I know he's gonna want a fire move, which I can still live at this point. I know he's got a double. He's not just going to sack Red Bull, so I'm gonna double back into Meloetta, pick up the KO. This is still Hoenn favored because my Arcanine isn't Boots. At this point, it can't switch into a fire move. And I think for like 10 minutes about what to let die here, and I let Meloetta die. Trying to decide is Meloetta more useful, is Arcanine more useful, which one dies? Because I do need to win with Sneasel. And ultimately, I decide if I sack Meloetta, there's a world where Sneasel can just barely beat Belly Bolts, but it gets paralyzed. And Arcanine can still E-speed the Tauros for the win. It can. Um, I am in sacking Meloetta saying I will beat your Belly Bolt with my two physical attackers. That's sometimes the world we live in. But Hoenn locks into EQ. This is just a throw. He even admits it after. Like, this is just a huge choke that I don't totally understand. Had he locked into a fire move, I had two options. Go Sneasel, because Sneasel lives. Close combat. Or like, sorry, bluff close combat, knowing that I like live the like trying to imply I live the fire move, and Swords Dance trying to catch him switching to Belly Bolt. I don't think that would have been good because I would have had to immediately Trailblaze as well, and I don't know, things would have been dicey. I think the real play there would have been go Arcanine, get the Intimidate, kill myself into Belly Bolt, and then go Sneasel. But at this point, I kind of forget the plan. Actually, maybe I have them the other way around. Maybe that was like the bad plan, and my good plan. No, I think the plan was go Sneasel. If he locked Fire Move, I was going to go Sneasel. I was gonna hope he thinks I live or I have like a fire resistant Terra. Yeah, I had the wrong way around. This was my plan. Go Sneasel, try to bluff. Hopefully he goes Belly Bolt. I Swords Dance, I Trailblaze, and as long as I don't get static, I win. Of course, none of that works if he just stays in with Tauros and Fire Move 2 it KOs me. But he locks Earthquake. Not thinking about Terra, thinking I'm Terra Water or something. I don't know. But that lets me Sneasel. And with Terra Grass and SD, this game is over because I am free to set up twice, and at this point, Belly Bolt is going to drop, and whether or not I get static paralyzed, Arcanine E-Speed is going to clean up. So I get to win. I get to win. I forgot for a sec, like I was thinking about so many lines. I forgot for a sec it didn't matter if I got staticked. But yeah, that was nice. I think I think I don't know about this game. I think once again, I'm more interested in going back over these for meta stuff than I am for like the games themselves. Um, I threw earlier in the tour, so it's nice to have someone throw back at me. It's nice that it's the person who said I was going to do so poorly. Maybe you shouldn't throw, idiot. Anyway, me versus GXE. GXE is on a three-game losing streak this week. He went from 3-0 to 3-3. And I figure if I hyper offense and try to put up some pressure, I think that will make his teams unhappy. I think his teams have been a little bit more on the balanced side. And he definitely kind of picks it up a little bit more. This is better versus hyper offense with the Scyther, the Torn, the Electro. Like, honestly, I like this team. I like all the stuff he's been bringing, even though it hasn't been winning. Uh, but I also think there's a lot of merit to hyper offense now in this meta, and more stuff than just Lycanroc. Lead Bombardier is awesome. Lead Avalugg is awesome, and Lead Frostlass is so much fun. Avalanche Destiny Bond, I love it. And genuinely, Icy Wind is still great too. Icy Wind in one spike, maybe even a Curse Body too, very worth it for like a lead Frostlass to get off. It's so good. Um, but this offense is just kind of built around like some jank and lures and stuff. I have Expert Belt Zoroark with Grass Knot to kind of pull away stuff like Gastrodon so that I can win with my Salazzle. I've got Tailwind's Torn so that Scyther and Houndstone, usually one of those two, can go stupid, but it's also Nasty Plot Terra Ground to eliminate things like Colossal, like Belly Bolt, especially Belly Bolt. Belly Bolt's a problem here because Houndstone isn't quite to KO it. And I can't knock it off with Zoroark without Houndstone then becoming useless once Bellybolt's been knocked, so it's tough. But I do need Houndstone. I tested several variants of this team. This was like an Arcanine. This was a Toxtricity. But Houndstone being a more effective Scyther check, I think, is very useful and having priority. It just kind of works out. We're seeing so many hyper offenses right now that go in for something like terrain or webs or weather or trick room or whatever, that I think people have lost sight of just like the straight up regular hyper offense has a lot going for it. Um, until you factor in they have to fight stall. It's very hard to fight stall with hyper offense. And I think that's kind of like cheese, weirdly, those weird styles like kind of almost do better into stall because the thing about a team like this, it is mostly a lot of like stuff that's geared around towards being offense and balance, and it's very hard to fit anti-stall stuff on your hyper offense. It's just a very weird time for this style, and I think this week that I'm bringing it is kind of close to the last gasp of like the regular hyper offense. We're still seeing it, and I'm just still not huge on it. And my team's been bringing it, and other people have been like bringing this team, and it's very matchup dependent now. It can work, someone on my PU World Cup team even just brought it today and like absolutely threw when they should have won with it. Um, but like it's definitely so much more matchup based now that we're seeing all this stall everywhere. I would not want to fight those stalls with this team or like this type of team. It's just it's kind of falling off, I think. But the game itself, I do think is at least interesting. I do kind of wish I Destiny bonded immediately with Frostlass to just make things annoying. But I do at least get an early reveal he's Scarf Skunk. If I had Destiny bonded, I don't know, he probably would have just had to revenge me with something else. But showing Scarf Skunk is nice. I'm going to immediately go in for a nasty plot break with Torn. I do assume I can just break down the floor, just like take the damage. I'll be in skunk range. This is fine to me. This totally works. No floor just means better Zoroark. Better Zoroark means I can chip stuff. My eventual goal is to win with Scyther here. Skunk comes back. My Zoroark, not too great here. Um, I don't think it's ever going to get the chance to mess with the Gastrodon, so I'm going to pivot it in here and just kind of get to knock off the Torn. Unfortunately, does catch me suckering with the sub. I do wish I double knocked. That would have put me in a better position, but I wasn't sure what to expect. When I saw leftovers, I should have known it was sub. I really should have. Anyway, Houndstone not quite doing enough damage to a Fizdev Gastrodon, so I'm just going to try to chip him a little bit and then get a free switch out. I miss early on, so I can't do that, but I'll drop another bolter. I'll take a little chip. It's not a big deal. I can still live the hits I need to. Couple more polters, even pick up a crit. That's fun. And that is now my easy chance to switch into Scyther. And this is the point where I think GXE goes wrong because GXE goes all in on clear smogging the Scyther and making sure I can't set up. And like I get it, but I think you need to try Electrode your Scyther. Because what GXE doesn't know is that number one, I have Tailwind, and number two, my Salazzle is Salicberry. And both of those can easily clean up the rest of this as soon as your Gastrodon is gone. I just don't think you can afford to lose it. Um, Looking at the composition of my team, Gastrodon is going to beat Salazzle. It's going to beat Houndstone. It probably beats Torn. Oh, no, he's not Ice Beam. It doesn't beat Torn, actually. Um, so you're gonna have to worry about Torn, but Gastron is like the thing that just beats those other guys cleanly. Whereas like Houndstone genuinely has a chance if Electrode gets chipped. I'm Coldberry. Houndstone kind of has a chance to really mess with these more. I don't know. I think it's less about Houndstone. It's more the fact that like Salazzle is such a threat, and going in for the clear smog just doesn't really work here. So I'm gonna Swords Dance a couple times, make sure that he's definitely still clear smogging. Um, this is still fine because now I can Trailblaze, force damage. He's gonna be in Salazzle range if he switches out and has to take a spike because he is Fizz Death. So I'm gonna dual Wing Beat just to absolutely make sure there's no way this Gastron is staying alive, unless I miss, obviously. And he does try the Terra here, and that's kind of a fate sealer. Terra might not have helped versus Salazzle, depending on the Terras, but without it, this game is now over. It doesn't look over, but it's over. All I have to do is go Hound. I'm going to force a little bit more damage on Skuntank. Just guarantee it's in my Salazzle range, which I miss, but all I needed literally was just the 12% sneak damage. That guarantees that Skuntank is OHKO'd by Salazzle. And now all I have to do is hit a couple times. Hit some Fire Blast because I have just enough Tailwind turns to clean up. Had it not gone down this way, there were some other lines I was looking at where I could endure Salicberry or just get my Salicberry activated by Electrode. So chances for me to win either way, but all comes to fruition. I never even need my Terra because things just kind of worked out. Yeah, offense is cool. Offense is cool. Arabia game, week 8. Don't have a lot to share about this. Ifo had been doing poorly. He switches out. This is a team that we've seen like different styles and variations on repeated a few different times in World Cup and other places. It's very do nothing balance. I don't like it from him. I am very tired and my team is out at this point, so I just grab the basic mind and fish balance and I change a couple things. I make mine Sneasel and Florges, which is better versus some stuff and worse versus other stuff compared to like Specs Meloetta. Fish has been using Calm Mind, Galarian Articuno, stuff like that. Mine is better into stall. I thought IFO might just pass Arabia stall, and that was a lot of the motivation for changes here. But I also just think it's kind of cool to work with Sneasel Florges. I think it's neat. This game is not particularly interesting because I just start with momentum and I keep it the entire way. I'm going to get rocks early. I'm going to make sure I can pressure the Sand Slash because Sand Slash sucks. Arabia immediately Raging Bulls when I have a belly bolt, just immediately does it. That's not a good play. That's just bad. And with the Tauros paralyzed, things are just even easier for me. I'm going to get to spam arrows a lot, and yeah, this the team maybe could have worked in this matchup if it was played differently, maybe, but it would have been very hard. And this is where he gets all the defense drops and flinches I need at every point as well. So there's not much going on here. I even play trying to get the 6-0 because Saudi Arabia, if someone gives me the chance to get a 6-0 during SCL, I'm going to take it, but he forfeits earlier. This is more the balance that I just think is kind of do nothing balance. It's too passive. It's too weak. I don't think it works. And in a meta this unstable and broken and like bad, PU's in a bad place right now. I just think you need more. You need more direction, more flow, more stuff going on here. I just don't think this has the stuff. And then lastly, we have me, LPZ. I like LPZ's team. It's like a fun looking balance. It's got the pivots, it's got the breakers. Like, I like this team way more. I have got double toxic balance. I've got toxic Gudra, toxic Skuntank. I think that lets Polisan Sand Slash work a lot better. Running Polisan plus Sand Slash, and even Scarf Melvetta too. That's a lot of passivity. And the goal of this team is to kind of be like, yeah, these guys are passive. Sandslash sucks. But what if he were toxic? What if Bellybolt was already toxic because I have a toxic skunk lure? Maybe Sandslash not bad then? And it kind of works. There are absolutely times where this team has just gotten a little bit dumpstered because I've lost offensive momentum and I haven't been able to play like around that. I brought in Pew World Cup and Entrocephalo just like bodied me. I started bad. I got a little bit haxed later. I had to waste Terra, and the game was like just a very quick 6-0. Where I still think I would have lost, not that badly, but I would have lost just because like this team can be hard to get going. But I thought it would work against LPZ's styles and the toxic stuff, not so big here, but Gudra is awesome in this matchup. Look at those dragon resists. I mean, not that enemy use dragon resists, but there's also like no real SPDF thing. So Gudra and Scarf Meloetta can definitely do some cleaning and synergistic stuff together. But definitely a point where I think our teams have a little bit more direction and purpose. I'm going to immediately Earth Power not knowing what to expect. And we're going to see the first of many, many, many volt switches on my Gudra. Like it's just gonna keep happening. Gudra's so good, I don't want to take the knock here, so we're just gonna have like a little skunk chip off, and unfortunately, I should be down because he got the first hit, but he's gonna miss a gunk. I'm gonna get a crit. He's gonna miss another gunk. That also definitely has a big impact on this game. I cannot deny that helps. I get to early chip the right on too. Maybe I should have toxic there, honestly, but I do want my rocks. And as his skunk comes in, I remember, hey, if you die to helmet, you don't actually get to knock it off. So I get to shore up and still have my helmet. That's fun. Uh, I do try to go Sand Slash, being like, I don't want to keep going Gudra and getting pressured. I should have just gone Gudra. Like, I'm just wasting my Sand Slash here. This sucks. Um, but for me, this game is really just about like chip, 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 and win with Scarf Meloetta because you don't have your skunk anymore, and that's all I'm gonna keep chipping. This time I go Gudra, which lets Bruxish in anyway. Turns out this is a very offensive Bruxish. I believe it's Choice Band, if I'm not mistaken. And gets the flip turn, which just annihilates my skunk tank. Oops. If I just protected, maybe I could have done something. Um, but I'm going to get my Polisand in, Shadow Ball the Venusaur, and get immediately doubled on because LPZ is playing aggressively and I'm not. I'm kind of just like letting my stuff happen. Not ideal. Probably should be playing more aggressively here. But the good news is, as soon as he gets a kill, at this point, he cannot switch into Scyther, really. I'm going to U-turn, just in case there's something I have to worry about, because anything that's taking that, like, I get a free Gudra anyway, so just trying to be safe, just trying to be very passive, and I think that's bad. I think I shouldn't be playing so safe and passive. And this is where I really screw up, because no Violet, not too bulky, half health. Almost dead. Scarf Meloetta cleans here. It wins. But I'm seeing Psychic Fangs. Meloetta takes, a worst case scenario from Choice Band Strongjaw, like 56. I can come in, eat that, kill him, still have my Meloetta around. It's totally fine. Unless he's not choiced, and I get like Fang's aqua jetted or just wave crashed here, or unless he crits me, which is totally what happens. Meloetta is absolutely my win con. I should have just tossed out my Polisand, but now my Meloetta is basically gone. Like, it should have swept here. Now I don't have it, and he's still got the Trode right on Scyther Core. This is genuinely still very, very tricky. I have to go back into Polisand unless I want to risk the speed tie here. Take one more bit of Electrode Chip, so one more time does it. But I'm going to keep being passive. I'm going to keep being pivoted on because I'm just like, I'm playing too safe. I'm playing scared. I'm like, I think I just have the win and I don't have to risk anything. So all LPZ needs to do is keep doubling into Electrode, never U-turning because he can't take Helmet, and then keep volting on my Gudra and just like slowly, slowly chip me over time. If at any point I make a play, I could stay in at any point, but I'd be risking the stuff that wins, so I keep not making a play. And we repeat. I don't remember how long this goes on. I just know I keep doing it. Oh no, eventually he does wing beat, but even then, it's still not over. He's like racked up enough chip that he can kill my Polisin with Rhydon. Not that I need to save it, and this is kind of scary. Scyther obviously doesn't kill him, but Scyther could knock him into Gudra range, and I was thinking maybe I go Scyther first, and then I decided not to because depending on his Terra, I figured it was safer to go Gudra. And definitely, like, at worst case scenario, Gudra should KO Rhydon. Worst case scenario, it'll knock Rhydon into Scyther range. And then Scyther can Terra, live any hit from Electrode guaranteed, and win. So I do think Gudra is safer than starting Scyther CC. What I didn't know is that he is actually Terra Fairy Rhydon. And he doesn't Terra Fairy, he waits for me to protect and then tries to do it next turn. I Draco thinking, okay, if he has a Terra, he's gonna expect to protect first and then Terra. So I do get that play right. But I very almost just completely threw this game by being too passive. So not happy with that. Like if I'm gonna go back and look at my overall SCL performance, obviously it was pretty good. Like I won a lot. I ended with a 5-2 record from a 1-2 start. I think the team stuff has me thinking a lot about what I want to do. I don't know how much. I just have the investment to like try in World Cup, to try in circuit playoffs. I already let myself like go out of Swiss pretty badly. Like I just didn't put up a good fight there at all. Um, but I am thinking about what to do with PU next also as like a council member trying to fix the meta. I do want to axe Scyther. I think obviously it's kept in check all the time. Like we can deal with Scyther, but I think we're going to get a better meta if we get rid of this thing that is just so hard to practically deal with and build around, right? And it just has me thinking a lot more about like if I want to be successful in the future, I need to keep the consistency with teams that have like just a better flow and direction. Because I think, especially what we're seeing in World Cup, building a passive do nothing team is like the biggest killer possible. It just it just destroys you. Um, that's just kind of my takeaways. So I suppose that's it. I don't know if I was going for anything in particular here, but it was fun for me to go back over the games and just like crystallize my thinking a little bit more. And maybe other people find it interesting, which is why I put it on YouTube. So goodbye for now, and don't use Sand Slash unless you're running many toxic users. It's a terrible mon. I hate it, and you should hate it too.